Welcome to the Marketing Advent Calendar, Day 6. I am your hostess, Mandy Thompson, and we are, as promised, going to continue on yesterday's topic of figuring out how much money you need to run your ad campaign. And in this session, I'm going to give you some actionable steps and tips where you'll be able to calculate how much you would need to spend to run the campaign that you want to run. So of course, this is tied to the Coffee Advent Calendar. Today's coffee from the Coffee Advent Calendar is a washed Guatemalan, which was lovely, but personally, I am a big fan of natural processed coffees. So for my second coffee of the day, yes, spoiler, I have already had coffee before these. So, but it was a few hours ago. So I'm going to do, this is a Myanmar coffee that comes from Rogue Wave Coffee Roasters in Edmonton, Canada. They are fabulous, and it's an anaerobic natural. This is the only place that I have seen that has carried a coffee from Myanmar. And I remember when I was there and tried the coffee being just shocked. And it turns out that the UN and their development investment has actually focused on coffee. So Myanmar has great coffee. Probably didn't know that. So on to chatting about marketing, because I know that you're probably here more for the marketing than for the coffee. So when it comes to choosing how much money that you need for your campaign, one of the things that you want to consider or think about first is how you're going to pay for your ads. So there are two ways that you're going to be billed for your ads. One way that you'll be billed for your ads is CPM. Now that is cost per million. Funny little thing, you're probably thinking per million what? And it isn't actually, well, number one, it's for impressions. So that's how that way of paying for ads works. But it's interesting, the word is actually, the term is a French term. So it isn't actually like a million, it is 1000 or 1,000. So it's the cost per 1,000 impressions that you have. The other is the cost per click. And so some ad platforms, you can choose which way you pay. Others, like with search ads, you're paying cost per click. On Facebook, you could pay, you can pay per conversion, you can pay for impression, but usually we're looking at cost per click or cost per 1,000 impressions. Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing you want to think about is what the objective of your campaign is. Okay, so is this a campaign that is going to run for a long period of time and has a long buyer's journey where you're going to have various retargeting audiences? Or is this something that's going to have a much shorter conversion window? The reason that's important is a few things. For example, let's say you're marketing for an event and that event's in 2 weeks. Then you want really high frequency. That's how often somebody sees your ad. But if we're marketing to someone for a lot longer buyer's journey, like buying a car, then we don't want people to see the ads so much that they're going to block the ads so that they don't continue to see them. And millions, I want to say that in 2020, something like over 100 billion ads have been blocked. So you want to make sure that you are respecting your audience and not inundating them in a way that makes them not want to see your ads. So the other thing we want to consider in addition to how often people are going to see our ads and for how long when we're building our budget is also our audience size. We need that because then from there, we can actually do a pretty straightforward equation to figure out what our ad spend should be. So for example, let's say we're doing something based on we have some friends coming in here. So let's say we're doing a campaign and we want to get the most impressions as possible, okay? And we know that we want to, let's say it's an event, and so we want our audience to see our ad 10 times a week for the next 2 weeks. Well, then what we would do, let's say it's on Facebook. We know that on Facebook, on average, that we pay about $5 per 1,000 impressions, right? So if you wanted to reach 10,000 people and you want to reach them 20 times over the next 2 weeks, then you're going to take that 10,000 times 20. That's going to give you the total number of impressions that you need. And then you're going to divide that by 1,000, and then you would take that number times 5 if your cost per 1,000 is 5, because then that's going to tell you what the cost is going to be to get all of those impressions. That's going to tell you how much you need to spend on your campaign. The other way we can look at this is, let's say it's a little bit of a longer campaign, okay? So let's say we know that, first of all, we have a cost per click. We're starting with search ads, okay? And we know that we're going to have to retarget people, put a cookie on their browser or pixel and target them again. And then let's say we know that it takes an average of 4 visits to the website to get a sale? Well, number one, we need to make sure that we get enough clicks fast enough to start a retargeting audience. So you're going to have to start with, how many clicks am I going to have to get 100 people, 200 people, 300 people, depending on how many different retargeting audiences you have. And then whether it's, again, cost per mil or cost per click, at each stage in the buyer's journey, how many impressions is it going to take to get the clicks? If you get a 5% click-through rate and you need 100 clicks to get that next retargeting audience going, well, then do the math, right? You're going to need 20 times the number of clicks as far as impressions. And how many impressions does it take to get a click? So you just figure these things out. You can see this in your analytics, research on industry standards, and you can figure out really, not exactly, but in a really close range, how much money you're going to need to be effective. And knowing that you have enough money to be effective is so critical, because so many people fail at advertising, especially when they do things themselves. And it's because they don't understand how to get their budgets right. So if you have any ad budget questions, you can drop them in the comments below. But otherwise, happy marketing. See you tomorrow.